Welcome to A11y Insights. I am Eugene Woo. I'm the CEO of Venngage. And for those who don't know, Venngage is an accessible design tool. We're a design tool that allows you to export your designs in an accessible format, and we have tons of built-in accessibility features. All right, so enough about the plug. Today we have a very special guest, Christine Foushi, founder of One Step Beyond, and a veteran in the publishing space with decades of experience, both in print and in digital. So welcome to the podcast, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you for making me feel old. Decades. Yes, 22-year publishing nerd. Lot of experience, different mediums.
Awesome. So why don't we get started with fairly simple questions. Tell us, how did you get started in publishing, especially with accessibility in publishing?
Sure. So journalist by trade. I went to school for journalism. Before that, though, I began really enjoying publishing. I started as, a photographer, as most people do in the 8th grade for your yearbook. I did high school yearbook. I did college newspaper, college yearbook. And so then I went into the newspaper biz. I was a copy editor designer for the Star newspapers, Daily Southtown, and then as an intern, and then my first job out of college was with the Herald News in Joliet, Illinois. I started out as a temporary archivist, typing in press releases and obituaries, as most journalists do. And then I moved into copy editor designer of a daily paper, and then assistant editor. Then I took a turn and went to the McGraw-Hill Companies, which was an educational publisher. And then I was project manager, turned left to total systems specialist, computers, content management systems, so on and so forth. Then landed in the world of accessibility.
And in McGraw-Hill?
That is not a McGraw, well, okay. Somewhat. And then finally graduated, moved on to a different organization, and that was working with additional higher education companies. And then that is where we started the accessibility initiative, specifically with ePubs, and subsequently PDFs, and then trying to really help the community of how to really efficiently, effectively, time savings, cost savings, to make your content accessible to those with disabilities locally and around the world. So that is where I've come, and we're now moving into myself as a new organization, One Step Beyond. Just going beyond. What do you need to know? What do you need, the tools that you need, and how to deliver the best content or anything to the community.
That's very exciting. Like, congratulations on taking that step. I know starting something new is a little nerve-wracking, could be a little nerve-wracking. I've done it a few times, so I understand. But congratulations. I think, especially, I think someone like you has a lot to offer. I have some questions about, I know we were talking a little bit before. I do have a lot of questions about ePub, because it's not something that a lot of us know. I mean, I only know, I obviously know, I've heard of ePub, but I don't really know anything about it. And so tell us a little bit about what an ePub is, and how is it different from, say, a PDF or a Word file?
Oh yes, the big question: PDF versus ePub. A conference session that I have on the docket to present one day. So yes, PDFs on the surface much easier to use, right? You can open it up. It opens up in a browser. It opens up into Adobe Reader. You don't need a special program to do it. ePubs, a little bit extra steps. Download a free reader like Thorium, or you can use Sigil or Calibre, which is actually editing tools for ePubs. But an ePub is really just a zip of XHTML files. And literally, you take an ePub, you can extract it, explode it, if you will, and you just have a bunch of XHTML files based on, could be chapters, based on however the structure of the ePub is at that point. And you can edit those XHTML files, and then you can zip it back up. So compressing it on a Word, or using a tool, eCan Crusher. This is not a promo. I don't get paid for that. That's what I use on my Mac. And you zip it up and you open up your ePub in a reader again. But what makes it, you've got all your files, but then you've got your other XML files, such as your container file, your content.opf. Those are the things that identify what your ePub is. It talks about, the accessibility, metadata. It talks about your book metadata. And so that's how, when you send it to Kindle or Vital Source or any of those other programs, that's how you see what the book, name of the publisher, name of the author, title, so on and so forth. So ePubs are just, and it includes the images, it includes the fonts, it's all these files. And then, so it's very relatable to the web, right? Because again, you've got your you got your XML, you've got your content. And so that is what an ePub is. What differs with it to PDF is you have your source files of ePubs where you can make your content accessible. You can remediate that content for accessibility. Whereas if you have a PDF, at the source and you make it accessible, and then you have your source files, make it accessible, make it a PDF, you got an accessible PDF. A lot of the times you've got this PDF that it's not accessible. It's very hard to do. You need to go back to the source, right? So, but in the world, students prefer, sometimes PDF, but there is there's a push, there's an initiative. I sit on working groups for ePub Higher Ed, trying to get, more accessible content. It's all about bringing awareness. I don't, who cares if it's a PDF or an ePub, but that is that's the true ePub versus PDF.
So if I understand it correctly, the big difference is in ePub, you actually have the source file, which you can change whatever you want. Whereas in PDF, yes, sometimes people scan things that are, obviously you scan it. It's a scan of a picture or an image. That's not the source file at all. It's from a paper was printed from the actual source, which is very, that's great. So is there a different accessibility? Maybe what's the sorry, I'm trying to find a wording. What's the standards? Is there a WCAG kind of a standard for ePubs as well?
Correct. So it follows WCAG. There's not a specific, there's not a specific standards for an ePub, because again, it's just a zip of files, XHTML files, XML. It follows the same conformance that anybody else would do using WCAG. The nice thing about ePub is there's an organization called daisy.org, and they have a tool called ACE, and it's free. You can download it to your computer, and you can drop an ePub in there, and it will give you a report. It will tell you if you have critical errors, serious errors, whatever. Now, also relatably, if on a website, if you have the DQ plugin, you can also do that on your, so, but it's a free tool, again, because you're bringing awareness to the community. It's another free tool. It will tell you. Now, you have a level of maybe some technical knowledge that you need for ePubs. But I don't know what ePub heading might mean, or heading order might mean, or how do I fix that, right? And so that's why you can expand your ePub, fix it in the XML, change your tagging to H1s, H2s, add your alt text, change your color contrast or your colors in CSS, whatever it may be. And so there's some level of technical that you need, but that's why you have people like myself or anyone else that can help you identify and figure out what's the best way to do it, to make fixes and change it.
Now, remediating PDFs, I understand a lot of. That's sort of like the world we kind of live in. What's and I'm assuming, have you remediated a PDF as well?
I am far from an expert of a PDF remediation.
Okay, got it.
I can do heading orders. I can do some alt text. I can do some things in there, but I think I think even the best or the best of the best, you're always still learning of how to really remediate a PDF, right?
Yeah.
So yes, as far as EPUBs go, so there are, the report will tell you, sort of helps drive you to a heading order. So you'll know, and again, you're editing XML, right? Now, I have a tool in the making that helps you right now remediate alt text, but it will eventually, hopefully, also help you navigate to educationally to be able to remediate heading orders or metadata or language tagging or other things that are there. But to remediate, it's if you have a level of technical XML knowledge, but it's getting into that nitty gritty, which is why you have organizations that usually help you. But there are no tools. So usually people will use Sigil or Calibrate because those are free open tools out there. But it would be also nice to have a tool that just you can drop an ePub, make some fixes, save it, bring it out, never having to look at the tagging.
Got it. And the tools you mentioned, those are just like ePub editing tools, right? They're not specifically for remediation.
Proprietary, right. It's not for content remediation. Like you can't, I mean, the tool could eventually, you could edit content. Like you could, I believe in Adobe Pro, right? Acrobat Pro. Years ago, I used to be a professional in Acrobat Pro. I haven't used it in many, many years, but I mean, to this extent. So, so remediating, you can remediate anything if you expose your file, get your XML. But a tool would be helpful if you're not as technical with tagging. Drop it in, open it up, make some changes. So that's it. But there's no real tools right now that can do that for ePubs specifically.
Okay. And so with ePub, I'm assuming you're remediating like an entire book or like a whole textbook. So is the work substantially like a lot? Like how long does it take? Like is it, if let's say a textbook publisher comes to you and go like, yeah, we've got this textbook or a higher ed, higher ed
convert, yes.
Can you make this ePub accessible?
Yes.
Like give a high level, like how long does that process take?
Yeah, right. So you can so you can convert source files, Word, PDF, InDesign, into an ePub. InDesign itself, you can export an ePub. Is it accessible? I don't know. Or how accessible. How accessible. But you can do that. So to convert a Word source, a source file, Word, ePub, InDesign to an ePub takes about 1 to 2 weeks if you're using a vendor to do that. To do an inaccessible ePub to an accessible ePub, again, 1 to 2 weeks, because you work with these organizations that know what needs to be done. Some organizations have gone through a Benetech certification process called GCA, Global, I'm going to mess it up, Global Certified Accessible. And they have to prove through a workflow that that what they're doing to convert ePubs or to convert source files to ePubs is accessible. And also, so just like conversion vendors, but also your educational publishing houses, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, etc. They too have to do that. And so the certification seal that they receive from Benetech is a good stamp to have to know. So time frames, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. So that sounds like a lot of work, 2 weeks. And so this is kind of a silly question. Like, why don't the publishers just create accessible EPUBs when they're, since they're already doing it, right? Why can't they just put that in their process?
Parallel workflows. Yep. That's why you want to do it upstream, right? So you've got a lot of organizations now that have backlists. They have to remediate for
older. So these are like older.
So you got your older titles. So once you do this, say, accessibility workflow modification, if you will, from this point forward, so say we're doing it on October 1st, from this point forward, your
Right.
content needs to be accessible. So you're not going to do anything. That stuff's going to be accessible. You don't have to worry about it. You're going to have your
Right.
alt text, your color contrast is going to be fine.
Right.
I mean, it really starts upstream, right? So that's also
Right.
part of the workflow audit. You want, or, you know, analyzing. You want to make sure that your templates for design have proper color
Right.
contrast, that your authors or whoever want to write the alt text. Your tables, another big thing. People don't know that tables, even in a PDF with a screen reader, if you don't have it tagged correctly, it's going to read this way, this way, this way, this way, where it might need to read, you know, going like this. So it's all about making changes upstream. It's all about making changes upstream, but you have your backlist. And so that, again, how much does an organization want to invest? You know, it's a lot. It's a lot. But change is scary. I've been there since print. I was there at print. I saw this evolution to digital. We're still yelling about MathML. People will know what that means. And so yeah, I mean it's a lot of work. You mentioned for the vendor, for a publisher, if they're telling them to make it accessible, then make it accessible, right? So accessibility, was it a really big thing in the last couple of years? No, people are now trying to play catch up. In the US, the European Accessibility Act that's coming up. Now you've got Title II. So got a lot going on there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we are also very big proponents of doing it upstream, doing it at the beginning, as as opposed to remediating it at the end, because it takes weeks sometimes to do a single document. However, like, I think the main pushback we get, I don't know if it's the same in your experience, the main pushback we get is, you have to learn, obviously, to make something accessible, you have to learn about color contrast. You have to we do have tools that help you with things like that, but there is a learning curve. It's not completely free. It's not like I push a button and then everything is accessible from the start. I wish it was. So what in your experience, what's the pushback that you've gotten from publishers on why they can't make their stuff accessible?
Well, mainly you've got your cost. Gonna cost.
Yes. Always the money.
Cost. It's always the money. I had someone ask me, I asked someone one day, I said, what about, you want to make your ePubs accessible? And the response I received from that was, well, I'm turning all of my ePubs into audiobooks.
Okay.
So are you telling me that your accessibility obligation is being completed using audiobooks? And this person says to me, that they're in this contract negotiation with SAG-AFTRA to get these great people to read the audiobooks, but wants a grant for accessibility work. So is that, I don't, in that particular case, that's someone who's just not up to speed with accessibility, and people that need,
understand.
Right. You've got your publishers who it's mainly cost, but then you've got them to say, listen, I do distribute in Europe. I do need to make myself accessible over there. Obviously, they need to be accessible here too. And so you've got that, but the universities, they have all of this Title II, ADA, they're required to do it. They have to do it. They have to make stuff accessible. So the universities are definitely doing it. I've worked with some where they've on demand sending us a book where we might have to chop that up, or the source files, and convert it into an ePub. So there's people that will spend the money, there's people that won't spend the money, and then you need to find those people that just want to learn.
Any interesting stories around making accessible ePubs, or anything there you like to share?
Story. I think I just shared all my fun stories about the audio. But yeah, that was my audiobook story.
That was a pretty interesting story. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. No, I recently, for an organization, we remediated 1,700 titles. Wow. I was the project manager on that, and it was like it was like a 5-year project, right? And it was remediating tables,
Okay.
alt text, metadata, descript, like it's just it's a lot
Structure, yeah.
more than just on the surface, a lot more technical that doesn't need to be
Right.
discussed. But that was it was a good project. And now, if any student goes out there and gets book, I'll know that was provided to them. We're also not in this business to make money. We're in this business to make awareness. I also think that you don't really, I'm a typical person. I don't have, I may have a disability that I don't know, but unless you've sat with people who do have disabilities, low vision or blind, hard of hearing or deaf. I've been to conferences, the CSUN in California, and you learn fairly quickly, for someone who may be low vision or blind, who may need help to get to the elevator or to the Starbucks or to a room. It's fulfilling. It's the most fulfilling work that I do. And you can only know what people want from the people who need it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think we, definitely it is, opens your eyes up when you get feedback from your clients or from the users of either the document. In our case, it's the tool. When we talk to users with disabilities who use our tool, we get a lot of feedback, and it's things that we don't think about at all. Simple things like buttons, and we were labeling them a little bit differently, and it was just really confusing. So simple things like that, just for example. So I agree, 100%. Yeah, getting that feedback is great. I was going to ask you, with that 1700, that project, was that all done manually, or did you use some AI? Was it?
No, it was programmatic. There was programmatic implementation and manual implementation.
Okay.
So AI for alt text.
AI for alt text. What's your take on AI? So I've done a lot of AI for alt text. In fact, our tool integrates open AI for alt text generation, not just for images, also for complex things like charts and things like that. Because it does a fair, you give it the data, it does a fairly good job understanding the data.
It does.
It's very logical.
It does.
So it will describe the data very well. We don't even, we don't send it the chart to describe. We actually send it the data to describe our charts. So yeah, what is your experience with AI? And what's your take on it?
So I've done several presentations here at conferences about AI and content remediation, specifically on your alt text and your tables. And so I do an exercise in my sessions where I have people write alt text, and then we ask AI to write it, and then we discuss and see like where we're at, right? Like, so human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, right? We are feeding the artificial intelligence our human intelligence. That is what we're doing. We're teaching it. So in a OCD project manager way, would I say write alt text with AI and never check it again? No, I wouldn't. I would double check it. I've had experiences where something was described and it was totally unrelated, right? So artificial intelligence is definitely helpful to get you started. And then if you want to edit it in a specific way, is the most, I think, advantageous. I think it does help you. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it does. You could be lazy and you're on 100, you're on your alt text 100. You're just like, oh, it helps get you started. It helps, and you need to have some knowledge of how to write alt text, what should be included, what, I 100% believe that it should just describe the image. Now, if you're in a children's book, you need to include the name of the child or whatever's happening, if it's, if it's a book about Jack and Jill, right? Jill's going up the hill and Jack's falling down the hill. So in those cases, sometimes it does identify, and AI will say Jack is going up the hill and Jill's falling down. So I want to ask your experience too. Would you just write AI and go with it, or?
I mean, I think it's similar. I think AI gives you, I mean, I think it gives you now like 80, 90%. I mean, for most, I'm not talking about like super complex things. I'm talking
Mhm.
about your everyday image or your everyday chart, not like a incredibly complex academic, chart, like just your
Right.
simple chart. I would
Mhm.
say, yeah, it gets you almost all the way right now with the
Mhm.
technology now.
Mhm.
And as I've mentioned, we've integrated with Venngage where, it gives you, and it allows you to edit it. So if you read it and you don't like it or it's wrong, you edit it. But most of the time, what we've seen is that, it's good enough. And it's, and with OpenAI, sometimes it even over describes it. It gets a little, it's actually very verbose sometimes. And sometimes I'm
It
like,
is.
wow, okay, it's very verbose. And yeah, so it gives a little bit more context than even, a human written alt text. And yeah, so I mean, I mean, I've used, so, and I've met, someone with visual impairment who used Be My Eyes, and it
Oh,
was a
yes.
very positive experience for them. I've also, I'm not visually impaired, but I've met someone who said that, who shared their experience using Be My Eyes, and they were very positive. And that's OpenAI, under the hood, that's OpenAI as well.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so I'm fairly I'm fairly excited about AI in terms of accessibility, uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
especially with things like alt text and like charts and just like complex visuals, which may take a while for you to write up the whole
Right.
description, like a
Right.
diagram. But the AI could probably do like 80, 90% of it, and then you're just editing it. So
Mhm.
that's my
For sure.
experience personally. So
For sure. I met the founder of Be My Eyes, Christian
oh, well, okay, wow,
Egbert. He was at CSUN a couple of years ago,
okay,
and it was just around the announcement of it being integrated with, I think the
with
OpenAI at the time.
ChatGPT. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, ChatGPT. So yeah, he's and I've had people use it. I've heard people that have been called to help them, when that works. So it's really interesting. Very good for him.
Very cool. Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about this new venture, One Step Beyond. I mean, I know it's new, but tell us about
Sure.
the vision.
The
Who
vision.
who is your ideal client,
Yeah.
and the services you're going to provide.
Hmm. Hmm. So it's a in my vast years here, there's a lot of that I've always wanted to do. Close, dear, and very close to my heart has always been editing and book development. I'm currently working on a project or I've always worked on a project for many years now, editing manuscripts for the writers out in Hollywood. And so there's been that, and then there's also been book development and such like that, which has always been great. And also what's always been close to my heart has been education outreach. I have been at career fairs in high schools and taught kids about publishing and what it really means and how long it takes and what it means. How does this book get created? And that's always been another passion of mine, mentoring and networking. And that's those options are very long term in this venture. But in the short term, focusing on the accessibility components, right? Making your content accessible, EPUBs, PDFs, working for your nonfiction fiction publishers, um, helping those organizations in the European Union, conform with
Mhm.
the accessibility acts that they're doing over there. Um, just make fixing those workflows, making those workflows, implementing accessibility upstream, right? To make sure that your content and your workflow is you're always keeping accessibility at the forefront or trying to, right? Because it's not going to be easy. I've done a lot of change management and evolving, and it's scary, and people don't want to do it. But that's why I've done it for so long that it's not as scary, right? Like you can start small, alt text, start small,
Right.
and then move into something else later. So that, and then also building a tool to help, again, make this educational for the people, because your organizations may have technical people, but you may have just, project managers too, that just are doing the grunt work of seeing content through. And it shouldn't be hard. Nobody should need to study WCAG. Nobody needs to study
Right.
WCAG. So this tool will help you understand, accessibility, education, and help with the small things, metadata,
Okay.
drop downs.
So that,
Why do I need to know?
okay. I mean, the tools, I'm a product guy, so I'm going to ask you a little bit about this tool that you're developing. Does it have a name? Like what, or is it still kind of?
Does not have a name. It's a very good question.
Okay.
Does not have a name.
Tell me tell me the high level vision of this tool. Like, is it something I'll let you describe it. Yeah. How do you imagine it to work?
Ideally, anyone should be able to drop an ePub into there. Right. It will, if it's for your alt text, it will pop up your images. You may be able to write alt text for everything. You may be able to write alt text one by one. You may be able to edit it, right? So just on the small front, the meta, then you've got your other key. These are the things that people need, or like people are struggling with: alt text and metadata. Nobody knows what that means, why it's used, how it's used. And so, you have your typical metadata, but then you have your accessibility metadata, which includes any hazards on your content, flashing screens, right, loud sounds. You have to declare those things in your accessibility metadata. And so it would be nice to also have, drop down menus or such that says, it gives you your options, right? And there are options. There's already preset things too, or, field in forms. So that's what it will do. It's to be able to aid you, not if you're a non-technical person, not having to look at the tagging. If you want to, you'd have the opportunity. But for right now, it's mainly focused on alt text creation, utilizing AI,
right?
Which goes into this whole thing too. Copyright, right? You got a whole copyright thing happening. So I had that question asked to me a year ago during a presentation. What you're feeding this? What I feed it today, you may use tomorrow. Yep. So, and that's what, and that might be what universities are going to face, right? You're putting, but is it, and that all goes back to rights, digital rights, and all that stuff too, which.
Yeah, I think, there's a bunch of lawsuits going on as we speak. And I think even OpenAI has begun to license content now. I think they might have had a deal with New York Times. I'm not sure. But some of the big publishers, the online publishers, I think because they've scraped so much of their content. They definitely have one with Reddit because a lot of their content comes from Reddit. So they have a licensing agreement. Anyways, the copyright thing, it's definitely going to get sorted out. I'm quite sure it's going to get sorted out. I don't know if it's going to be fair for everyone, but probably not. But they'll I'm quite confident they'll sort out the copyright issue. For consuming the content, I think the more complicated one is when in general it's more of the visual content. I think that's the one, like the visual content and the and music. I don't think those are going to be very tough to overcome.
I do have a fun story of AI. My niece wrote her senior paper and asked me to edit it. And as I was editing it, I'm reading it, and the whole first paragraph was marked up in red. And as I kept moving down, my red marks became less and less.
Right.
And then she cited some sources, and I just thought, wow, for a senior in high school, I'm surprised she knows how to cite this.
Right. Yeah.
And as I continued to go down, I realized I sent her a note and I said, did you write this? And she's like, yeah. I was like, did you copy this from Wikipedia? Because 20 years ago when I started
Right.
digital, digital referencing was starting, or digital, using websites for your papers. People were like, you can't copy and paste from Wikipedia. You can't copy and paste. And so I asked her a second time. I said, did you write this? She said, yeah, I wrote this. And I said, okay. I was going to ask her a third time. A couple days later, gives me a call, and her paper got flagged for 21 instances of AI.
Ah, wow.
And my sister-in-law asked me, she goes, did you
Yeah,
read this? And I said, oh, I
yeah.
read it. Yeah, I did. And I asked her, and she told me no. And she said she wrote it. I said, she 100% did not write it. 100%. So if you're going to use it, kids,
Yeah, yeah. Don't just,
reword it.
yeah, yeah. I also think so. I mean, we're going a little off topic of it, but on AI, it's fascinating. I had a conversation, with my professor, my graduate school professor, and she was saying, like, maybe the classroom is flipped now, and she was trying to just figure out, like, what's the classroom going to be now with AI? Like, writing papers may not make sense anymore because, I mean, you can get ChatGPT, and just memorizing facts and teaching stuff may not make sense anymore. And she was just talking about the flipped classroom concept. I'm not sure if I'm not that familiar with it. She mentioned it, and where you're actually doing the work in class, the homework and all that in class,
Right.
and then
Right.
learning at home. So it's flipped. So you have to write the paper in class if you want to write the paper, but you do the learning at home because you can just use ChatGPT and
Right.
learn all the facts and all of that. And I was like, hey, that seems fair. It seems fairly interesting, and I think students would learn better if they're actually writing their own papers, or doing their own work, as opposed to just copy and
Yeah,
pasting.
I personally don't like it. I don't like using it because I don't think it's, I mean, again, it helps you, like, personally.
Right.
Um, I feel like if you're writing something, it just repeats itself. And that just doesn't make
Yeah.
you sound, that does
Yeah.
make you sound smart, right? You need to make it your own
Yeah.
tone. So I think for your accessibility purposes of trying to be efficient, cost savings, time savings, it's great. It helps you. It's a jumping
Yep.
off point. It helps you with accessibility to better understand it. Again, you're not studying WCAG. And so it knows, because it's been taught by us how to do whatever you're asking
Yeah.
it to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's read the whole internet, so
Right. Right.
it has. So,
It is.
so, yeah. Uh, all right. So I'm about to wrap up. Is there
Sure.
something I should have asked you I didn't ask?
Oh, I think do you feel like you've learned anything about EPUBs
I've
today?
I've learned tons. Yeah. I've learned. I mean, I've
Would
learned
you
tons.
use it? Would you use an EPUB?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, yeah. I do use it. I was saying, I have a Kindle, and I do get stuff in EPUB, and not a lot, not often, but I load them on my Kindle to read. That's my only interaction with EPUBs, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
I mean, EPUBs aren't necessarily, maybe one question here is, EPUBs aren't necessarily just for books, right? Like, you can use them
right,
um, for reports, for
right.
conference booklets, if you have brochures and such. So it's not, you don't want to think that you can, nobody, and this does not apply to just educational realms, right? I think what you guys are doing there at Venngage, I mean, I use Canva, and I wish I would know. There's no way to tell. I don't think yet there's no accessibility within Canva. So I was unaware of Venngage, so I would like to use it, because all of my presentations, I think that's great for people specifically going to accessibility conferences, as well. So you're doing good
Well,
work there.
do you have a free account? If not, we'll give you one.
I don't have a free account.
You don't? Okay, I will ask Mandar. Mandar, give her a free account.
Should we cut
Yeah.
this out of the
No, no, it's
cut
fine.
this out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Of course, yeah. So, yeah, if you're on a podcast, you get a free account, 100%. Yeah, so it's just like Canva, except it has a lot of accessibility features in there. It's and it's very easy to use. So, and you'll be, if you ever want to export a PDF, it will be accessible. Obviously, there's, it used accessibility checker. It has a whole accessibility checker.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Right. I have
So,
three conference sessions coming up, so I can use the whole thing.
Awesome. Yeah. And then you can export it and give out the handouts, and it will
I'll
be
be like,
accessible.
use Venngage. Use Venngage.
Yes, definitely use Venngage. Right. So thank you very much, Christine. Before we leave, how can people contact you or reach out if they want to learn more about One Step Beyond, or about what you do?
Sure. So right now you can email me at cfoushi, CFOUSHI, at gmail.com. Slowly getting a business started, right? So we're not 100% there, and os-beyond.com is our website. I'm also slowly getting there. So, and I'm on LinkedIn, Christine Foushi, can't miss me.
Very cool. And we'll have those links in the description. So thank you very much again, Christine. Pleasure talking to you. I learned a lot.
You too.
Today. Thanks.
Same. Thank you.